Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End of Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I have been waiting for this interview for a very long time. Thanks so much for being here, Philip.
Of course. How are you doing today, Caitlin?
I'm so good. I'm so excited for today. I've been waiting all day for our conversation, as always. Can you?
Wow.
It's always so much fun when we get to connect. So
Absolutely.
I'd love for you to tell our guests a little bit more about what you do and maybe even how you got started into this world.
Yeah,
So,
sure. So at Lightspeed Investing, we represent a group of medical professionals who are now investment professionals. And for the last 15 years, we've been able to run a make money firm quite successfully. And what that means is we either make money for people in the form of our hedge fund, or we teach people how to make money specifically through the global financial markets. But be rest assured, this is not your typical stocks and equities. This is futures, commodities, and stock options where bona fide billionaires have come out of this space. And a great gentleman named John Arnold, he was able to take 1.5 million to 1.5 billion in 2.5 years, trading in commodity natural gas the right way. And that's what allowed him to become the youngest self-made billionaire in the US at age 33 back in '07. My business partner, who's a former internal medicine physician, he actually had the opportunity to learn from Arnold. And that's where a bulk of our methodology comes from, right? On top of us being from the medical field, where we've added additional prudence, professionalism, and ethics on top of his methodologies.
it's amazing. It's so cool what you all have been able to do and study and already cultivate, just from 2007, right? When this all really started to come about until today. Can you tell our listeners what a hedge fund is? Like, I know a lot of us
Yes.
are confused by that. It can feel so complex, and a little bit over our heads at times.
Yeah. No, so this is great. For those of you listening, a great book to reference is a book called More Money Than God. You can look it up on Spotify. You have Spotify Premium, listen to it. But in the intro chapter, it talks about the formation of hedge funds, mainly around like the 80s. Okay. And a hedge fund is really simple. It is a fund structure where you can use multiple financial instruments to hedge against each other so that you can have a more sound and profitable portfolio. But just understand that that is not a strategy that you have to utilize every single day, right? We probably use it, I would say, around 20% plus minus, right? The idea here is, let's say you are in a position, right, in a long position, say for the Nasdaq, right? And you are not 100% sure if it's going to go the way that you want it to go, so you're going to hedge against that position, right, with the Dow, right, the YM, and you can short the YM. Now, this is also a really critical point to understand in the hedge fund space. When you trade futures and commodities, okay, as well as stock options, you can actually make money in all kinds of directions. So back in '08, when the markets were to collapse, right? This is mainly with the stock market. Okay. Your valuation of your shares would also collapse. Like, Caitlin, if you had that $1 million tied to the stock market, you'd be freaking out because that valuation, right, also collapsed with the markets. But not here, right? Not only can you make money when the markets go up, down, or sideways, when the markets go down, they tend to go down 67% faster than when it goes up. And because of the fact that if you are correct on your hypotheses and conjecture and you short the market right when it's collapsing, then guess what? You're actually in profit. And so, unlike most traders and investors with stocks who are just waiting for the stock to go up to make money, right? You can not only be impervious to market collapses and economic cycles, but you can make money in all kinds of different directions, specifically when it goes down. And that is the power of trading in the form of a hedge fund. Also, hedge fund managers, typically speaking, have their own money in the deal, in the fund itself when you manage money. So what that means is you have to be very prudent, especially with your risk management. Okay. If you look at people like Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, right, AIG, all of those investment banks, there's two distinct differences. Number one, they're leveraging other people's money. Okay. And so that their accuracy rate, that's why it's a plus minus 48%. Okay. Which is unacceptable here Because if you stop by one of our live sessions, you're going to see that we are able to operate around a 90% accuracy rate. It's no different than a world-class surgeon doing surgery in front of you, except not on a patient in an OR room, but on the financial markets itself, right? And futures and commodities is known to be more risky and volatile. That's why most people tend to shy away from it. But if you have a bona fide system, okay, you can actually convert these markets into your own personal ATM machine. So when you compare hedge funds to your investment banks, okay, number one, hedge fund managers have their own money in the deal. That's why it's so prudent to operate with a much better risk management discipline, okay, operating at 90% accuracies and up, first and foremost. Secondly, there is no bailout. There is no central government coming to our rescue. Because back in, the 20s, the 1920s, in the Great Depression, when the markets totally tanked, there was no safety net for the people. And that's why they came up with the Federal Reserve, right? And so if you look at '08 and when that happened, guess who came in? It was the Federal Reserve, right? They saved the day, okay? They were the safety net that bailed out all these investment banks. And guess what? Time and time again, if investment banks or banks in general go bankrupt or they go awry, there is a central government backing them up. There is no such thing as a safety net here in the hedge fund space, which again adds to the reasons why we have to be so diligent and prudent when it comes to our accuracies and risk management.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it really is complex, but then when you explain it, it's much more digestible, for like even myself that's been in investing for forever, but in more conventional side of investing. And this is so interesting to me that you almost play, like you said, to like short the market a little bit, and you're playing not against the money, but you're playing against the market at times in your predictability and the sense of that.
That's right. That's right. And also, when you trade futures and commodities, you're mainly trading all the stocks as an index. So, what you're trading is you're trading the average of all 30 stocks when you trade the Dow Jones 30, right? That's what the YM is. You're not trading individual stocks. You're basically trading the average movement of all those stocks combined. Okay. And then also on the other side, commodities, right? They include things like gold, oil, soybeans, corn, right? In this electronic and digital age, you can now trade these things without actually having to physically exchange them. Like people used to have barrels of oil or even hogs, like pigs, like delivered to their doors, right? Because it was the physical exchange. But now it's all electronic. And so that's the benefit, right? You're able to trade these more obscure asset classes in a much more efficient way, right? And again, if don't take my word for it, feel free to research Forbes, because if you did your due diligence and you studied the wealthy, you'll find that on Forbes, the world's top 42% are in the finance and investment space. So don't just look at us, right? There's reference points. And again, this is information that schools do not teach you. And that's why we're so passionate about democratizing access to this space. Because, for me growing up, I was supposed to take over my dad's accounting firm in Hong Kong. I said, thanks, no thanks. Because one, I'm a city boy that loves the suburbs, right? Go Jayhawks. And two, I did not want to wake up and do people's taxes. So when my dad was like, okay, kiddo, what do you want to do? I said, I have no clue. Let me explore the medical field. And at the time, being a surgeon really resonated with me, right? Because of the hands-on aspects, the intellectually challenging aspect, and the lucrative career. But at the end of the day, there was not much information about hedge funds. Because what I did, Caitlin, was I would research the U.S. World News reports. And I would be a maniac. I would look up, what is the top paying jobs, the best jobs. And literally it would be like on the top 25, it would be all the disciplines under medicine, right? Pediatrician, OBGYN, your surgeons, and then you have your financial advisors and then your executive, like CEO. And I'm like, well, how do I pick the one that resonates with me the most? But the idea here is your traditional school systems and colleges are not going to talk about this because this is the private wealth sector, right? Schools are meant to produce employees, right? And so your typical career fairs are also not going to talk about this as well. That's why, traditionally speaking, if you wanted an in, either you got to be heavily immersed in the financial districts of the world, or you got to know someone who knows someone, right? That's how you can get indoctrinated into this, I would say, very secretive space, right? But, for us, ever since we figured out this game, ever since we established connections that allowed us to flourish, right? We feel it to be our duty to share this information with the world, because we strongly believe at Lightspeed Investing that regardless if anyone does anything with these markets, they should at least know about.
And that's what inspired me so much about the first time that I talked to you, because coming from like the stock options that I've worked with, and for the listeners, if you have never invested in stock, this is important for you to know. If you work with a firm, every time you're making a sale, you're paying someone. You're paying, right, for the system to run, right, when you're not there. And what I love about what you all provide is you take out the middleman and you
That's
allow
right.
the investor, to make their own decision, to learn from themselves. And a lot of these, right, and I'm going to use air quotes because it's not really taboo, but what the common, traditional lifestyle would say is a little bit more behind the scenes, as you mentioned, and taken back because that's the way people wanted it to be. It removes the opportunity to build wealth for the common person. And on top of that, like when you start working with an advisor, then you're still paying, right, every single time. And for the listeners, if that's the position that you're in, no harm, no foul, because so am I, right? But that's why I was so passionate about meeting you, Philip, and bringing you on the show, to allow our audience to see a different way and a different path that is not spoken about. On the End in Mind, we're all about the untraditional lifestyle. So
Mm-hmm.
you fit that perfectly.
Yeah. And it's all about, paying it forward and sharing this important message to the world. Because look, if I did not have the personal desire to own an MBA team after graduating from KU, right, and recognize that surgery was not going to get it done, I would have never taken that leap of faith to pivot into entrepreneurship, which then led me to networking in high caliber rooms with high caliber business owners, where I met my current business partner, the hedge fund manager himself, who's a former internal medicine physician that had the opportunity to get trained by one of these billionaires, right, in this industries. And that's another thing is John Arnold is not the only one. Okay. If you look at James Simmons, he was the pioneer in our field that figured out automated software trading across multiple markets. The best part about James's journey is that he didn't even start until his late 60s. Okay. And he was able to amass $30 billion, over 30 billion in his net worth in just 15, 16 years. There's also Stephen Cohen, Stephen Schofield. There's Ken Griffin of Citadel, who's, I think got 55 billion, right? There's Paul Hutchinson, who manages about 48 billion. I was blessed to have the opportunity to speak at one of his private jet hangar platforms, and the guy manages about or his net worth is about 8 billion, right? So, I mean, I just named about 68 people off the top of my head that are, again, bona fide billionaires in this space. But why do you not hear about them, right? So, again, that's why we are here to promote and share it with the world.
Yeah, bring it to the people, right? Like this
That's
is
right.
what we're all about. I love it. And I just have to make this comment. I think your LinkedIn profile photo is of you and the hanger, right? When you met him that
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I
Yep.
love that
That's
for our
right. Well, you
listeners.
the private jet photo, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so cool. For our listeners, go connect with Philip. He'll give you all the information at the end of this episode to do so. It's always in the show notes below, too. But yeah, I'm super inspired by what you all do. And, I've had the opportunity to sit in and watch some of this magic happen on a daily basis. And I've also heard about some of the wins amongst clients that join
Oh wow, yeah. I'm glad that
in
you're
this.
bringing that. It is insane. I actually have another podcast interview to cement this into reality, and maybe even after watching it, you still, it's hard to wrap your minds around it. But that is the hedge fund space, people. Again, reference more money than God. I think you and I had this conversation where when back in the early 2000s, Lord Bankfield was rewarded like what 25 million for being CEO of Goldman Sachs, the lowest paid hedge fund manager on the top 25 list, number 25, made like 5 times that amount. So again, it's all in that chapter. But yeah, I recorded one of our clients. His name is Charles. He was able to take 70K to 1.212 million in 6 weeks. And he's not even our top case studies as of this year. We have a gentleman named Dr. Joe who took 5 grand to right under 5 million in 4 months. And that's a crazy story. And he's so busy that I can't even get a hold of him to do the podcast interview. But yeah, Charles's story is insane. In 5 weeks he took 70K to 900K. And then, on week number 6, it became 1.212, as he'll mention on the podcast. And then, after that, I think he's now close to 1.5.
It's insane, like for the average person, like you're saying, there is this screen, right? That they almost don't want you to know because it is that easy. Like for our listeners, I'm sitting and watching these trades happen every day. I'm seeing it happen live time. And also the stories that come with this. Like some of your clients have been able to pay in full for their children's weddings and then some, buy
That's right.
houses, create
Yeah.
wealth for years and years to come. So hopefully their kids don't have to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they pass this on to their kids
That's
too.
right.
Like, this is
Correct.
what it's all about. It's about opportunity. And if we have the opportunity to do this, why is it not talked about more? It's just so shocking. So
Well, and so that's why, right? Money at the end of the day, Caitlin, is a byproduct of the right inputs, right? So what we have to offer, right, is the ability to showcase a high income skill set. And if you feel like you want to learn this high income skill set, what it becomes then, as the person's individual choice, is either a supplemental income, a full-time income, or in a lot of our team members' case, a full-blown career, right? I actually started as a client. A lot of our fellow executives start as a client as well. And for those that see our mission and vision, they want to contribute because they see what we're about and they want to help. There's more opportunities within the firm for them as well. So yeah, it's definitely life-changing and transformative in all those regards outside of the money.
exactly. It almost like challenges the money mindset, right? I was talking with Brandon about this, one of your chief executive officers, and I straight up asked him on the call, I go, do you ever just look around at your life and like, does it not feel real? I think he's 25 years old. He has
That's
about
right.
7 to 10 investment properties. He's worth a lot of money, to keep private information private. But for our listeners to just give more of a tangible, like, you don't have to just make the money, create the wealth. He travels all the time. He works with you all. He's passionate about helping
Oh
people,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's really what we're about here at the End in Mind too. It's like, okay, you guys could have just gotten in, right, got your money and lived on a yacht and sailed across the world for the rest of your life, but you've chosen to put it back into the people. And
Well,
that's
because what we've learned, right, is when you make money for wealthy people, when you make someone who's already wealthy a little bit more wealthy, right, you get a little hand clap. But when you see the true appreciation and gratitude that comes from transforming someone's life, that like in Charles's case, he's a fellow business owner, and he's like, my business was kind of, in this slump. I'm now able to really dial it down and work with a handful of clients that I want to work with, because I can make my money in the mornings, right? And then I go serve the clients that I really want to serve, as opposed to, serving clients because I have to, right? And it's the same thing with these doctors who we've helped retire from the medical field, right? If they want to, they can dial down their hours at the hospital and work because they want to, not because they need to. And that's such a huge psychological relief. And I'm so proud of Brandon. He's my right hand, our CIO of the firm, who we helped retire from his 6-figure engineering job at the age of 25. But don't think that it was all, stars and rainbows, because he lost a significant amount coming from the real estate syndication world, and he learned a hard lesson there, and it was because of those initial losses that fueled him, right, to really commit to this game. Once he saw that, oh, you can generate liquidity, right, you don't have to wait so long for this. There's not even a cycle, right, because when we trade, it's really minutes, uh, uh, minutes, days, and weeks. Like we barely even talk about monthly returns, let alone annual. But the idea here is, once he got exposed to that concept, right, he just committed to it, and he decided to go all in. And it's allowed him to move to Kansas to help build our business headquarters up even more. And he's coming into his own in terms of whoever he gets into contact with, they can become very profitable because he's a great teacher, and that which is another skill set that we're unraveling. So it's just amazing. When you get to work with people who not are only focused on monetary gains, right? And that's why we're so excited all the time.
Yeah, it really is. It's such a good vibe to be around. It's so fun and exciting. And, I have to ask this question because I know that you have a great answer, but also for the listeners, I know they're thinking, is this too good to be true? Right? Like, when is the next shoe going to drop? Like,
Right.
how real is this? Right. And I'm sure you hear this very frequently on your
Yeah,
calls within the community. And I can say it till I'm blue in the face, right? That I see this
that's right.
happen, but I would love to hear you,
Yeah, no, I mean that's why we take pride. We take great pride in the fact that talk is cheap, right? We offer weekly sessions for those who are interested. Well, these are typically reserved for paying clients, but you can grab a complimentary guest pass, come for 2 weeks. At night, we teach for 1 hour, but more importantly, in the mornings, we actually go live. We prove what we teach, and we make the money in front of you. And again, our whole thing is if you do not see us make a minimum of someone's annual salary, which is around 50K or more, okay, in that half hour, you can feel free to never talk to us again. And what I want you to really look at and focus on is the accuracy, it's the precision, right? And when you see it over and over and over again, maybe the first time you're like, I don't know, how is this possible? The second time, you're like, this is luck. The third time, you're like, this is a coincidence. But hey, by the fourth time, the fifth time, all the way up to the 10th time, if this is a recurring phenomenon, I think we can all agree that there is some substance and depth, okay, where there's logic and science to back it up, right? And so I highly urge you to, come check this out with an open mind, and not just for, one time or two times, but for a consistent time frame. And then I think you really get your answers.
Yeah, exactly. Come see it for yourself, if you're skeptical.
That's
And
right.
one of my favorite things that you all say on the live sessions very frequently is, this isn't luck, and
That's
that
right.
actually shows us,
Yeah.
that
Hope is not a strategy. Yeah. Hope
exactly.
is never a strategy.
And a lot of us entrepreneurs, like you said, we live on hope. And imagine if you could create so much wealth for yourself where you had the biggest cushion, always something to fall back into. I believe that that's our true dream. That's why a lot of us gotten into this space. So,
Absolutely. And there's a saying by Einstein, pound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, or compound effect is the eighth wonder of the world. And with that said, right, I truly believe what we have to offer at Lightspeed Investing is the ninth wonder of the world for that reason.
yeah. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. I almost feel like we should end it there. Is there anything else you want to share with us, just for our listeners, so you all know this is part one of part three episodes as well. So you will hear from Philip on a very more detailed oriented side of the business over the next three episodes, because I really wanted you all to get to know him. The way that they approach this Lightspeed Investing is awesome. I highly recommend, at the very least, having a conversation, seeing what your options are, because there is a lot of availability here to change your life.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Caitlin. What I would say is for those listening, if you want to get to know me more, feel free to look me up. I'm Philip Jayhawk Chan, representing Kansas and all of its greatness on LinkedIn and all the social medias. But feel free to shoot me a message, because it definitely did not happen overnight, right? There was a lot of ups and downs, before I figured out my momentum and my, I would say, current trajectory within entrepreneurship. So if you're someone thinking about taking that leap of faith, if you're someone wondering if you should go back to a 9 to 5 or how your future should be planned out, feel free to connect with me as well. I love talking about all things leadership, entrepreneurship, and of course, investing as well.
It's so good. Thank you so much, Philip, for spending so much time with us today. This was so great. Like I said, for our listeners, stay tuned for the next 2 weeks of episodes to come out, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. You have a good day now.
Thanks. You too.